Good afternoon and welcome to the City Planning Commission special meeting.
Good afternoon. This is the City Planning Commission special meeting held at New York City Planning Commission Hearing Room, Lower Concourse 120 Broadway. Today is Tuesday, January 21st, 2020. I will now call the roll. Chair Lago.
Here.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
Here.
Commissioner Burney.
Here.
Commissioner Capelli.
Here.
Commissioner Cirillo. Commissioner DeLuz.
Here.
Commissioner Dweck.
Here.
Nope.
Sorry.
Jump the gun.
Commissioner Edie is here. Commissioner Knight.
Here.
Commissioner Levin.
Here.
Commissioner Marin.
Here.
Commissioner Ortiz. Commissioner Rampashad.
Here.
A quorum is present. The report section of the calendar, Borough of Manhattan, calendar numbers 1 through 7. The Go Broom Street Development, calendar number 1, C200061 ZSM has been withdrawn. Calendar number 2, C200061A ZSM. Chair Lago.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Burney.
Yes.
Commissioner Capelli.
Yes.
Commissioner DeLuz.
Yes.
Commissioner Edie.
Yes.
Knight.
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Rampashad. I'm sorry, I'm going to call all the numbers. Sorry about that. So the first, calendar number 2 has been adopted. Calendar numbers 3, C200064ZMM, calendar number 4, N20065ZRM, calendar number 5, N2000066ZAM, calendar number 6, N20067ZAM, calendar number 7, M790721BZSM. In the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments, authorizations, and a modification to a previously approved special permit concerning Go Broom Street development, for favorable reports on calendar numbers 3 and 4, and for adoption on calendar numbers 5 and 7. Chair Lago.
And I assume also for number 6.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Burney.
Yes.
Commissioner Capelli.
Yes.
Commissioner DeLuz.
Also yes.
Commissioner Edie.
Yes.
Commissioner Knight.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Rampashad.
Yes.
Favorable reports have been adopted on calendar numbers 2 through 4, and calendar numbers 5, 6, and 7 have been adopted. And that concludes. There's no other business on the special meeting.
It's closed.
Okay.
And now I welcome you to the City Planning Commission Review Session.
Yes, this is the City Planning Commission Review Session of Tuesday, January 21st, 2020. The time is 1:06 p.m. and a quorum is present. The first item on our agenda is a certification of a site selection and acquisition in Queens Community District 1. Our presenter is Blake Monteith.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a city-sponsored application to facilitate the development of a new sanitation garage and salt storage shed in the Astoria Industrial Business Zone in Community District 1, Queens. Apologies, it's not advancing. Perfect. Thank you. The Department of Sanitation and the Department of Citywide Administrative Services seek to acquire an approximately 9.8 acre development site, as well as a vehicular driveway and a utilities easement. The requested actions would allow DSNY to build just under a 94,000 square foot sanitation garage and a 20,000 square foot enclosed salt storage shed with surface parking and fuel stations for DSNY vehicles. The sanitation garage would service Queens Community District 1, and the salt shed would service Districts 1 and 3. This is a map of Long Island City and Astoria, with north shown on the right side of the image. The proposed garage and salt storage shed would replace an existing sanitation garage in the Ravenswood area of Long Island City and an existing unenclosed salt pile on the Long Island City waterfront just south of the Queensboro Bridge. Both of those locations are shown on this map. The existing sanitation garage, shown here on the left, was constructed in 1931. It's surrounded by the Ravenswood Houses NYCHA community, and it is next to a playground. Local residents have expressed health and quality of life concerns for years due to the presence of diesel-powered sanitation trucks idling in this residential neighborhood. The garage is also structurally deficient and undersized for DSNY's current and future needs. In 2017, the Mayor de Blasio committed $130 million from his executive budget to build a new garage and relocate the services in this existing garage to a new location. DSNY temporarily is using a portion of the proposed site for vehicles that do not fit in this garage. And on the right is an image of the existing unenclosed salt pile located in a mapped but unbuilt section of 43rd Avenue at the intersection with Vernon Boulevard. DSNY would relocate the salt pile as part of this proposal as well. The project area includes Block 826, Lot 42, and part of Block 850, Lot 350. The full project area is shown here with a dotted black line. The project area is in an industrial business zone and in a heavy industrial M31 zoning district. The surrounding area is predominantly industrial and heavy commercial. There are privately owned ball fields located south of the project area, and a medium to low density residential neighborhood is southwest of the project area. The Q100 bus stops near the project area on 20th Avenue, providing access to Long Island City and Rikers Island. DSNY did an alternate site analysis, but found that there were no city-owned sites of adequate size in the community district, and that other privately owned sites were not well located for efficient service delivery for the district garage. The industrial business zone is anchored by several large, heavy industrial uses, including 3 gas power plants and the Steinway Piano Factory. This is an illustrative site plan of the proposed development. The development site, including the garage and salt shed, would be located on the northern end of the project area, shown here on the right side of the image. DSNY vehicles would access the development site through an entrance at 19th Avenue, and you can see that at the bottom middle of this image. And a utilities easement would also be established between the development site and 20th Avenue. You can see this on the left side of the image. Remaining portions of the site would be privately owned and would primarily be used for vehicular storage by private companies. The proposed facility would operate 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, with limited operations on Sundays. Their current facility in Ravenswood has about 155 total personnel, with about 75 personnel at their peak 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift. Their workforce would include field workers, as well as supervisors, mechanics, and clerical personnel who would work on site, and they would provide employee parking on site. DSNY is also thinking proactively about the future of their facility. Their building would be designed for useful life through at least 2100, and therefore they would design for a 3-foot sea level rise over that period of time. The garage, parking lot, fueling station, and salt shed would be built to an 18-foot design flood elevation, and mechanical systems and emergency generators would be placed on upper levels of the garage. DSNY will also seek LEED Silver certification for the garage, and among other features, it would include a solar voltaic panel system on the roof of the garage. They're also planning to include on-site stormwater harvesting and filtration of that stormwater on-site, as well as electric vehicle charging stations for their current hybrid and all-electric vehicles, and in anticipation of a future all-electric fleet. DSNY believes the proposed site would be an appropriate location for the proposed sanitation garage and salt storage shed. This application is also the first step in the mayor's strategy to relocate and replace the current Ravenswood garage that is not suitable for DSNY's needs or the surrounding community. Thank you.
Questions or comments from the commission? Commissioner Delauze.
Thanks for the presentation, and it's great that the sustainability features are part of what's being highlighted and being planned for, and the resiliency features as well. I'm wondering when it comes back if they could talk about whether or not they considered also doing photovoltaic panels above the parking.
Sure.
Other questions? Yeah. Vice Chair Knuckles.
I assume an 80-year presence at the current site connotes city ownership, or does it?
It is a city-owned site.
Right.
Yes.
So at this point, is it too early to consider what the use would be for the current site?
The city is exploring options, but the city is not able to provide a path forward at this time.
Well, whatever the decision, I would hope it would inure to the benefit of the NYCHA residents that have endured for so long the current usage.
Absolutely.
Other questions? Commissioner Levin.
Yes, I'm curious about what this does to the traffic patterns for the garbage pickup. The Ravenswood site has maybe its only advantage is that it's fairly centrally located within the community district, and this site is off at one edge. How is that going to change their collection routes, or in particular traffic through residential areas?
Thank you. I can ask DSNY to speak to that at the public hearing.
Thank you.
Commissioner Burney.
Could you talk a bit about the nature of the waterfront access and how you get there? Is that public access?
That would not be publicly accessible, no. Waterfront access is not required for industrial uses in a predominantly industrial area, so this would not require waterfront access.
But isn't it a goal of the city to have waterfront access wherever possible around the city?
So that is certainly the city's goal, but we can elaborate more on the requirements in a follow-up session.
Okay.
I'll note that we have seen waterfront access provided by DEP at its Greenpoint wastewater treatment plant, which is located like this in a heavily industrial zone.
Right. I think EDC were looking at it around Hunts Point. So.
Other questions? Then this application is certified. Thank you, Blake.
Thank you.
The second item on our agenda, page 29, is a certification of a zoning map amendment in Brooklyn, Community District 1. Our presenter is Lilia Carrier.
Good afternoon. This is an application by 223 Troutman for a zoning map amendment to map a C24 commercial overlay over an existing R6B district in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. The proposed project area was included in the 2008 Grand Street rezoning, which changed the district from an R6 to an R6B and the commercial overlay along Grand Street from a C23 to a C24. The project area is located at 276 Bedford Avenue in Williamsburg, Community District 1. The project area is a portion of a tax block generally bounded by Bedford Avenue to the east, Berry Street to the west, North First Street to the north, and Grand Street to the south. The surrounding area is characterized by low and mid-density buildings with a mix of residential and commercial uses. The project area fronts onto Bedford Avenue, which is a neighborhood commercial corridor with ground floor local retail. The surrounding mid-blocks are predominantly row homes and multifamily apartment buildings. The immediate surrounding area is zoned R6B, a mid-density contextual residential district. The Greenpoint Williamsburg Upland Inclusionary Housing designated area encompasses much of the surrounding area. The C24 commercial overlay is mapped along Grand Street and Bedford Ave south of the project area, and the zoning districts north of the project area include a mid-density R6A contextual district and a paired M12 R6A special mixed-use district. Nearby public facilities include Monsignor Alexis Jacquard, an affordable housing building located northwest on the corner of Bedford and North First Street. Our Lady of Consolation Church, just northwest on North First, and the New York City Parks Metropolitan Recreation Center, located southeast on the corner of the Bedford Ave and Metropolitan Avenue. The project area is located in a transit zone and well-served by transportation. The Bedford Ave L train is located 6 blocks north of the project area. The project area is also served by the B62, which runs along Bedford Avenue, and the B59, which runs along Grand Street. A city bike station is located 1 block north on the northeast corner of Bedford Avenue and Metropolitan Avenue. The project area is located on block 2380 at the southwest corner of Bedford Avenue and North First Street, and is approximately 2,500 square feet, with a frontage of 100 feet on North First and 25 feet on Bedford Ave. Included in the project area is the development site and a portion of the adjacent lot, which is a condo building with 5 stories and 8 units. The project area is located in R6B district and partially within a C24 commercial overlay. The commercial overlay only maps a portion of the development site. So here we have the development site. It's approximately 2,700 square feet on a vacant lot on the corner of Bedford and North First. Here we have Bedford Ave, which is a commercial corridor, as I said, with ground floor local retail along Bedford. This is the west side of Bedford, between Grand and North First. The development site is on the right, on the north side of the block, with mixed use and residential buildings adjacent. Both of these buildings have restaurants on the ground floor and residential units above. And here's across the street from the development site, the eastern side of Bedford Avenue, a similar mixed-use context with a grocery store on the left with residential above, and then a deli on the right side. The applicant proposes to construct a 3-story mixed-use building on the development site at 39 feet. The proposed development will be a full lot coverage building with a total of approximately 5,500 square feet, with 2,300 square feet of ground floor commercial use and 3,200 square feet of residential floors on the upper 2 floors. The development will also include a cellar level dedicated to storage for the ground floor commercial use and building mechanicals. The applicant is seeking a zoning map amendment to establish a C24 commercial overlay in an existing R6B zoning district. The zoning map amendment is necessary to facilitate the development of a new mixed-use building on the development site and fully establish a C24 commercial overlay along Bedford Ave. The proposed zoning map amendment reflects the character and the existing zoning of the area, where C24 commercial overlays are mapped over several blocks and near the rezoning area. So as you can see from these 2 tax maps, the existing overlay is mapped 100 feet from Grand Street, but due to the irregular shape of the block, it does not cover the northwest portion of the block on Bedford Ave frontage. So the proposed map amendment will map the C24 overlay over the remainder of the block. It will be 100 feet from Bedford Ave, thereby extending the overlay over the full portion of the block and Bedford Ave frontage. And that concludes my presentation.
Questions from the commission? Commissioner Bernie.
Will the architect be coming to the public hearing?
I can check.
Because there are some strange things about the building design that we might want to discuss.
Okay, I will note that to see if it'll be a team presentation.
At this point, we're at certification, and we'll see it again at pre-hearing review once we have the community and the borough president's input. Other questions? Commissioner Levin.
Well, I think I know the answer to this, but it seems odd that we would be zoning a portion of the adjacent lot, putting the overlay on a portion of the adjacent lot, newly constructed, unlikely to change its use. Why are we not just mapping the site itself?
So we're mapping it 100 feet from Bedford Ave, so it covers a portion of the adjacent lot. And having a rational zoning map was the reason for having it 100 feet from Bedford Ave rather than just the site.
Yeah, okay. I figured that was the answer.
And you were right.
Yeah, no, but it does lead to some irrationalities in real life. But
I don't think the existing building, though, is going anywhere. It's brand new.
well, yeah, all the more reason that it might be more rational. The man on the street would, or woman on the street would think that the boundary ought to be where the development site ends.
Other questions? Okay, this application is certified.
The third item on our agenda, page 48, is a certification of a zoning map and zoning text amendments in Brooklyn Community District 2. Syed Ahmed is our presenter.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is a private application requesting a zoning map amendment from an M12 to an R6A C24 district and a zoning text amendment to establish the project area as an MIH area. The proposed actions would facilitate a mixed-use 4-story building with 9 apartments and approximately 5,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space. The project area is located at the southeast corner of Gold and Front Streets in the Vinegar Hill neighborhood of Brooklyn Community District 2. Vinegar Hill is a small neighborhood with 2 to 3 story historic residential buildings, residential and commercial loft buildings, and industrial uses. This small neighborhood is surrounded by large-scale city infrastructure. To the north, several blocks along the East River waterfront are zoned M31 and are occupied by Con Edison's Farragut electric substation and a steam generating plant. A block to the east is 225-acre Brooklyn Navy Yard. Area to the south is zoned R6A and is developed with PS 307, NYCHA's 1,400-unit Farragut houses, and the entrance to the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway. The area to the west is developed with a mix of residential and commercial loft buildings, industrial uses, and Manhattan Bridge. In 1997, the Landmarks Preservation Commission designated 3 small clusters of row houses dating back to 1780s as Vinegar Hill Historic District. Area 2 of the historic district, consisting of 5 attached homes, is directly north of the project area. The applicant site is a corner lot currently occupied by a storage shed and a parking lot. The subject block is split into 2 zoning districts. The northern half is in an R6B residential district consisting of 16 tax lots, 10 of which are developed with residential buildings containing 28 dwelling units. The remaining 6 lots in the middle of the block are used for warehousing and open storage. The southern portion of the block is zoned M12, comprising of 4 industrial lots, including applicant's lot 1 at the corner of Gold and Front Street. These lots are used for industrial uses, including open storage and warehousing. The project area is well served by public transit. F-Line York Street Station is 2 blocks west of the site. B62 and B67 bus lines also serve this area. The applicant's irregular shaped lot is 515 square feet in size. To make the rezoning area rectangular, a small portion of the adjacent Lot 41 is added to the project area. The rezoning of that small portion of Lot 41 from M12 to R6A will have no impact on the existing or future development of that lot, which is occupied by a one-story warehouse building shown here in picture 1. The proposed rezoning will extend an existing R6A district from the south side of Front Street at a width of 70 feet from Gold Street onto the project area. The rezoning would facilitate a mixed-use development of 9 apartment units with 4,995 square feet of commercial space at an FAR of 2.6. In addition, the seller will provide 6,300 square feet of storage space and no on-site parking will be provided. The proposed R6A district has an FAR of 3.6 with an MIH area mapping, a base height of 65 feet and maximum building height of 85 feet or 8 stories. Parking is required for 50% of market rate units. The C24 commercial overlay would permit commercial uses at an FAR of 2 in the proposed R6A district. The applicant has chosen to map MIH option 2 on their site. However, MIH requirements apply to projects with at least 10 dwelling units or 12,500 square feet of residential floor area. Since the proposed development would be below the specified thresholds, it would not provide any affordable housing units. That concludes my presentation.
Questions? Commissioner De La Ruz.
It'd be helpful when this comes back to find out if they have an intended use for the commercial space. It seems like you already have an answer.
No, I will find out.
Okay. And obviously, when it comes back, I'd like to understand the rationale for mapping MIH option 2 versus option at least 1 and 2, despite the fact that they're below the threshold.
Yes, they are building below the threshold because height is an issue, and they have approached the community board. One presented this project, and they have gotten a positive feedback, and that's what their explanation for.
Positive feedback on option 2 or positive feedback?
On FAR and.
Okay, yeah, that's different.
Yes.
I hear that piece of it, considering the historic district in the area.
Option 2, they proposed option 2, and
I know, but because we might see other applications similar to this in the future, and given the need that exists in the community and the fact that one application kind of lays the groundwork for the next one, I would like to know the rationale for only mapping one of the two options, one of the options that exists.
when
We
they
can
come,
ask them for that.
when they come
rationale.
back.
When they
yes.
come back, yeah.
Great, thanks.
Other questions? Commissioner Levin.
Sorry, it's been a long time since we've seen you, so hope you've been good.
Yes, I have.
I have a question about, the proposed zoning that's being mapped here. Why isn't, in a rational zoning situation, you might think that R6B is the better way to go. R6A has a reasonable worst-case development scenario that is quite extreme and wouldn't fit here at all, in my view. I'm heartened that they have presented this to the community board and are proposing something that's not all of what an R6A might be, but that will be on the books and available for building should the zoning go through. So why shouldn't we map this R6B? Which is actually closer to the proposed FAR in the total building anyway.
Yes, the proposed FAR is 2.6, and R6B has 2.2 FAR. So their development is about a little more than 2,000 square feet above 2.2. I think it is a question of viability, and we believe that R6A, which is south of Front Street, it could have been mapped to the north, and covering both sides of Gold Street, In the past, there was an application for 251 Front Street in 2017, and Commission reduced their proposed, from R7A to R6A. At that time, they proposed R7A for 251, and the Commission.
No, that was,
Yes,
that was,
yeah.
And given that it was on two short ends of the block and they were going through at the same time, this one took a little bit longer. And so they were coordinated in that respect, just pulling it up Gold Street. But given their proposed FAR, 6B would match what they're proposing as well. So,
6B would?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Just wondering if it's possible to get copies of the floor plans for the building, the upper floors.
Okay.
And the other question I had is, I noticed on their proposed site plan, they show existing curb cut, but there's no required parking for this building. So are they going to, is there any reason why they're keeping that curb cut?
I will ask the applicant about this, and when they will come for public hearing, they will answer the question.
Commissioner Burney.
So does the Landmark Preservation Commission have any jurisdiction over this?
No.
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 Okay. So the same question as before, will the architect be coming to the hearing?
Yes, I will ask the applicant
Terrific.
to
Thank you.
bring.
Other questions? Okay, another application certified.
Thank you.
The fourth item on the agenda, page 70, is a non-ULURP referral of a zoning text amendment in Manhattan Community District 8. Scott Williamson is here to present.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is an application by Yorkville Mansion, Inc. For a zoning text amendment that relates to the Mansion Restaurant. The text amendment proposes to allow an unenclosed outdoor cafe on the northern side of 86th Street in the Yorkville neighborhood of Manhattan Community District 8. The Mansion Restaurant has been in operation since 1945, occupying the ground floor of a 4-story mixed-use building on the corner of York Avenue and 86th Street. Immediately to the north is a near-identical 4-story mixed-use building. To the north and east of this pair of buildings is a 9,000 square foot L-shaped site known as 511 East 86th Street. A 22-story mixed-use development is under construction on this site, enveloping the Mansion Restaurant on its north and eastern sides. This can be seen in the image on the left here. The project area encompasses a 125-foot length of 86th Street's sidewalk. 75 feet of this length is immediately adjacent to the Mansion Restaurant, shown in the image on the right. The remaining 50-foot length of the project area is adjacent the eastern neighbor's 86th Street frontage, where the 22-story mixed-use development is under construction. The surrounding area is characterized by mixed-use buildings on York Avenue and residential buildings generally within the mid-block. The scale of surrounding development ranges from 4-story pre-war walk-up buildings to scattered residential developments of up to 40 stories. Carl Schurz Park is located at the eastern end of 86th Street, 1 block away from the Mansion Restaurant. The nearest subway is the newly opened 86th Street station for the Q train. Importantly, the M86 SBS line provides westbound service along East 86th Street and northbound service along York Avenue. The closest stop to the Mansion Restaurant is located 150 feet to the north on York Avenue. The site is zoned R10A. R10 and R10 equivalent districts are generally mapped along the avenues in the area, extending along the cross streets, along major cross streets. Contextual RAB districts are generally mapped on the mid-blocks. The corners that define the intersection of York Avenue and 86th Street, including the development site, are mapped with a C15 commercial overlay. The present mapping of sidewalk cafes in the area is shown here. The Mansion Restaurant can be seen in blue. The category of unenclosed sidewalk cafes was established in 2004 and broadly mapped via CPC action. It is defined as an outdoor area on the public sidewalk in front of the restaurant that contains removable tables and chairs. The general approach taken to mapping sidewalk cafes can be seen to follow a pattern of tracing the avenues and then extending no more than 125 feet along each street toward the mid-block, matching the commercial overlay. The exception of this is 86th Street. Between the East River and 5th Avenue, 86th Street was removed from the 2004 action at recommendation of Manhattan Community Board 8. The recommendation was made due to a streetscape improvement plan for the East 86th Street corridor, which had been proposed by the 86th Street Neighborhood Association. CB8 stated in its 2004 resolution, this prohibition for 86th Street may be revisited at some future time. The portion of 86th Street identified in purple reflects a 2008 CPC action to allow the length of 86th Street from 1st Avenue to a distance 125 feet from 2nd Avenue to permit small sidewalk cafes. That action permitted the Maz Mezcal restaurant to apply for and operate a small sidewalk cafe in a similar manner to that proposed by the current application. The 86th Street Streetscape Improvement Plan, noted in 2004, was updated and implemented by DOT and DDC in 2015. The intent of the plan was to make improvements to the thoroughfare while facilitating the M86 SBS bus service, which runs along 86th Street and to the north on York Avenue, which you can see in the map there. Improvements included the addition of bus boarding bulbs and neck downs at intersections, as well as landscaping and adding street furniture. The project area is not located in proximity to any of the infrastructure related to the M86 SBS service, nor other improvements made as part of the 86th Street Streetscape Improvement Plan. So the proposed extent of unenclosed sidewalk cafe for the Mansion Restaurant is highlighted here in red. The proposal will amend Section 1441 of the zoning resolution to allow sidewalk cafes in the project area only. It also amends 1442 of the zoning resolution to clarify that enclosed sidewalk cafes are not permitted on 86th Street between the East River and 5th Avenue. The proposed 125-foot extent of the project area is consistent with the length applied to sidewalk cafes along streets in the area and corresponds with the extent of the C15 commercial overlay. The Department of Consumer Affairs applies design and operational regulations to sidewalk cafes through licensing. Through this license, the applicant would expound on matters including table and chair layout, clear paths along the sidewalk in lieu of obstructions, which is generally required to be 8 feet, staff servicing, associated canopies, and operation hours. In summary, the application does not involve any construction, nor does it request any layout endorsement from the CPC. The applicant seeks only approval for a zoning text amendment for Section 1441 and 1442 of the zoning resolution. Subject to licensing, the text amendment would allow a 125-foot length of the sidewalk on the northern side of 86th Street to be used for unenclosed outdoor cafe purposes. Happy to take any questions you might have.
Questions from the commission? Commissioner Burney.
So would this text amendment apply to other properties now that might want sidewalk cafes on 86th Street, or only to this applicant?
So to this applicant, but it also extends 125 feet into the block. So the Mansion Restaurant takes up 75 feet of that.
Okay.
The neighbor that is under construction, the taller building right next to it, has some frontage that would then be allowed to have sidewalk cafes if they applied for a license. But the DOB filings of that indicate that it's not intended to be used for retail. So whether they would have any utility for that would be the question.
But I mean, if we've decided that the streetscape studies has been completed and executed, and now the reason to have a ban on sidewalk cafes is no longer relevant, why wouldn't we just change it for the whole of 86th Street?
Yes, that would make a lot of sense. That would also be quite a heavy ask for a private applicant to be able to facilitate the whole of 86th Street. There would likely be some environmental review implications and things like that, so that would potentially have to be more of a departmental initiative. Mm-hmm. The applicant for this application did look at mapping directly opposite on the southern side of 86th Street in a similar manner to what they're proposing there earlier on in the application. But there's also a development site on that side of the road, and that is proposing community facility uses at ground floor level. So it was determined that they wouldn't have a huge amount of utility for a sidewalk cafe permissibility. So that part of the application was removed.
So it's a future task for the department then?
Will be added to a very long list of nice cleanups, but probably not a priority. Commissioner Levin.
Has this been previewed with the community board?
Not yet.
So do we have no reason to think that they will have changed their opinion?
Well, the purple extent that I outlined there as well, that went before the community board, and I believe they supported that at the time.
I mean the one to the west, the one between first and second?
Yes, that's the one you can see just on the left extent of the map there in purple. So that was 2008. Whether their attitude towards this has changed or not, I'm not sure. But they would receive this back as part of the review.
Of course, of course.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
When was the picture taken that you?
Which picture are you? These ones? That was a few weeks back.
Okay. Because it looks like, at least the picture on the left, that it has something outside. Looks like it.
Yeah, so there is some sort of clutter at the front there, and that will need to be fixed up. There is a bike rack there that they will need to figure out the permissibility of, particularly in lieu of having other obstructions on the sidewalk. The applicant is looking at that at the moment, and they will have to address it, particularly when they come back.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, so this will get referred to both the community board and the borough president for 45 days.
Thank you.
The fifth item on our agenda, page 87, is a pre-hearing review of a notice of intent to acquire office space in Queens Community District 7. Our presenter is Kai-Kung Yang.
This is a notice of intent by DCAS and Queens Community Board 7 to acquire 1,900 square feet of office space at 30-50 Whitestone Expressway, College Point, Queens, Community District 7. Queens Community Board 7 is seeking relocation of office space because their current lease is not being renewed by the landlord. The proposed office space is within the Special College Point District, created in 2009 to facilitate business park development in a way that minimizes impacts on nearby residential areas. It's located in an M11 zone, which permits light industry uses at an FAR of 1.0. The office space would be relocating from downtown Flushing, approximately 1 mile north to 30-50 Whitestone Expressway between Ulmer Street and 31st Avenue. Nearby transit includes the Q25 at the Whitestone Expressway and Linden Place intersection, one block north of the office space, and Q65 at the College Point Boulevard and Whitestone Expressway intersection, 1 block south of the office space. Approximately a mile to the south is the termination point of the 7 train in Flushing, as well as the Port Washington LIRR station. Nearby development is a mixture of corporate business parks, big box retail, municipal agency operations, and open industrial uses. Adjacent uses include the multiplex cinema movie theater located adjacent to the north, a beauty supply warehouse, and an office of an electrical company located adjacent to the south. There is also a high concentration of public facilities within a few blocks of the proposed office site, including the DMV, NYPD's Tow Pound and Police Academy, and further west, the Department of Sanitation's North Shore Marine Transfer Station. The 30-50 Whitestone Expressway building is a 4-story, 105,000 square feet office building with approximately 310 surface parking space. Uses in the building include several office uses for insurance companies, a nursing school, an accounting firm, and supermarket association. This office would host Queens Community Board 7 for a 20-year lease period. DCAS has indicated that this is an ideal location for the district office, as this location would serve to hold smaller public meetings and office administrative operational needs. The 1,900 square feet office space would be located on the 2nd floor and include 2 offices, workstations, a pantry, a file storage area, a conference room, and a waiting area. Larger monthly public hearings will not be held at this location, but at the current location at Union Plaza Care Center on Union Street. Thank you.
Questions from the commission? Commissioner Levin.
Well, thank you for the information about meetings. That was is the core of my question, which is that this site really isn't honestly very accessible unless you have a car.
Unless you have a car.
Which seems unfortunate for a community board serving such a densifying neighborhood. Is it really the case that there were no locations in downtown Flushing that would have met their needs? It sends a very bad signal to the community to locate this kind of a community resource so inconveniently.
I can ask DCAS to address if there were other locations within downtown Flushing, but they have chosen this and they're presenting it tomorrow. Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Then we'll see this tomorrow at the public hearing.
Thank you.
The sixth item on the agenda, page 96, is a pre-hearing review of a zoning map and zoning text amendment in Queens Community District 2. Our presenter is Scott Solomon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Woodside Equities seeks approval of a zoning map amendment for the entirety or portions of 11 tax lots from R5B to R7A with the C23 commercial overlay to facilitate the development of an 8-story mixed-use building in the Woodside neighborhood of Queens Community District 2. Zoning text amendment is also proposed to designate MIH. Quick background on land use actions in the area. The project area, located on the eastern side of 52nd Street between Queens Boulevard and Roosevelt Avenue, was rezoned from R6 to R5B in 1992, a result of the Woodside, city-sponsored Woodside rezoning. 2006, Masba Woodside rezoning changed the M11 district to the west to R6 C23, and the C81 to the south along the Queens Boulevard corridor to R7X C23, also establishing the borough's first IH area. Project area not affected. Sunnyside Woodside rezoning added some contextual districts to the north. Again, project area not affected. Surrounding area is characterized by a mix of types and densities, mixed use higher density along Queens Boulevard, lower density to the east. The project area consists of approximately 33,000 square feet across portions of 11 tax lots. Again, development site owned by the applicant occupies tax lots 12, 15, 16, and 17, approximately 15,000 square feet. Lot 12 is occupied by a warehouse that has been vacant since 1996. Until that time, the applicant operated a baby accessories and clothing distribution facility here. They have since moved to Jamaica, where they still operate. The 3 other tax lots of the development site are currently vacant. The 2 lots south of the development site, lots 10 and 7, are occupied by a 2-story house of worship and a 1-story non-compliant auto repair shop. The southernmost lot, tax lot 1, is only partially within the project area and is used for the parking and loading access to the rear of the 9-story mixed-use building that fronts Queens Boulevard. Zoning compliance will not be affected. North of the development site on lot 19 is a 3-story multifamily residential building, and then a 12,000 square feet portion of 3 tax lots that front Roosevelt Avenue, a small portion, also included in the project area. Above our existing photos, looking to the eastern side into the development site, on photo on the left, showing the vacant portion of the development site, photo 2, with the existing multifamily building in the foreground, warehouse in the background, house of worship in the photo to the left. Photo right showing mixed-use buildings on the R7X corridor outside the project area at the foot of 52nd Street and Queens Boulevard, looking straight into 52nd Street, the photo top left, looking west, photo 6 on the right. Photo 7 looking across the street to the existing R5B district, R6 district, and photo 8 looking to the elevated 7 line just north of 52nd Street. You'll see a lot of green fence lining up here. There's a lot of active construction, as-of-right construction projects going along here. When certified, the proposed development was an 8-story building containing 61 units with rather underwhelming illustrative drawings. The applicant has since updated their drawings, but also the programmatic side of the project. First, 5,000 square foot ground floor retail, 49 parking spaces. Now they're proposing 60 dwelling units, 15 to 18 are still permanently affordable, maintaining a smaller floor plate for the ground floor retail, but also adding space for a potential 46,000 ground floor community facility, and 43 parking spaces, now all located in the cellar as opposed to a few that were located in the rear yard. We're looking at a rendering looking north with the elevated 7 train to the north. Proposed development cellar showing all the attended parking spaces, ground floor to the right, showing a smaller floor plate for the commercial, separate entrances for the residential community facility. Commercial uses, 23-foot curb cut still proposed for access to the cellar. here are drawings of the floor plans showing the mix is proposed currently, 15 one-bedrooms, 24 two-bedrooms, 21 three-bedrooms. This was in response to Community Board 2's request for additional family-friendly dwelling unit sizes. Height and setback drawing above showing the 80-foot total height, 55 proposed base height, and the separate entrances fronting 52nd Street. Much more articulation than the prior building that was certified. Again, proposing a zoning map amendment from R5B to R7A C23. The goal or objective for the applicants is to step up the density from the higher density R7X, stepping down slightly to the R7A proposed, which allows a 4.6 FAR, further stepping down to the R6 district to the north, and then just expanding the existing C23 overlay from the west, north, and south onto the project area. They're proposing to map both options 1 and 2 for flexibility. They have in engagement with a affordable housing consultant. They expect to be able to expand more on the preference for option 2 while still mapping 1 and 2. On November 7th, 2019, Community Board 2 adopted a resolution recommending approval by 18 in favor, 11 opposed, 0 abstaining, with the condition that community facility space be set for on the ground floor, preference for a green roof and other environmentally friendly design standards be used. The architect, again, tomorrow will go into detail on how those will be used. A preference for option 1 to be mapped. Also, as prior projects in Queens have experienced, this sort of fell through the cracks of the borough president. There was 1 or 2 others that fell through, but she did not schedule a hearing nor issue a recommendation. And that is the conclusion.
Questions from the commission? Commissioner Levin.
I gather the community facility space came about at the request of the community board?
Yes.
Do they have a particular tenant that they'd like to see or kind of tenant they'd like to see in that space?
Yeah, there is preference for anything other than essentially medical offices, preference for maybe a UPK type of facility. It's a rather small square footage that may not be able to be that conducive to that. There was discussion about recommending or requiring that a locally nonprofit community facility be used, and that generally indicates anything other than doctor's offices.
Okay, but they didn't have any suggestions about who that?
Not specifically.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rumpershad.
Yeah, actually, I have a question about the, I guess, proposed tenant for the commercial space, because that, that street is pretty quiet in terms of retail.
Yes,
Do
currently.
they have someone in mind already?
They don't have any specific tenants currently.
Okay, the second question I have is, will the tenants have access to the roof?
It's a good question. I'll ask them to follow up on that.
Because with that dual green roof requirement, it's could affect the layout. And the last question I had is, I was just curious, looking at the solid plan, I see that they put the bicycle storage on the other end from the main elevator and stair core.
I see, yeah.
Are they going to have, I guess, area designated for clear access because it's valet attended parking? So I just want to make sure that when they bring in the cars, they're not blocking.
So the architect will be on hand tomorrow. He can go into detail on sort of the maneuverability. Again, illustrative drawings only, but he'll have a very good insight on that.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments or questions? Okay, we'll see this project and the architect tomorrow.
Thank you.
Public hearing.
The 7th item on the agenda, page 124, is a pre-hearing review of a zoning map and zoning text amendments in Brooklyn Community District 2. Our presenter is Kevin Kraft.
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a private application by 90 Sand Street Housing Development Fund Corporation requesting a zoning map amendment and zoning text amendment to facilitate the conversion of an existing building into a community facility containing 508 units of supportive and affordable housing. This application was first presented to the Commission on October 15th and referred to Community Board 2 and the Brooklyn Borough President. The public hearing for this application is tomorrow. As a reminder, the project area is located within the Dumbo neighborhood of Brooklyn, Community District 2. The site is located between the Manhattan and Brooklyn bridges, just north of downtown Brooklyn. The project area is an approximately 42,000 square foot block that consists of 2 tax lots, block 87, lots 5 and 9. The block is bounded by Sand Street to the north, J Street to the east, High Street to the south, and Pearl Street to the west. Lots 5 and 9 are under separate ownership but constitute one zoning lot. Lot 5 is a non-applicant-owned site, originally constructed in 1918. The site is currently improved with an 8-story commercial loft building that was renovated into Class A office space in 2017. Lot 9, the applicant-owned site, is currently occupied by a vacant 29-story building that was formerly used as a hotel to house Watchtower members working in nearby facilities. There are a total of 508 units in the building, as well as a commercial kitchen. There is also an existing 7,600 square foot plaza located on the eastern side of the lot that runs along J Street between Sands and High Street. This plaza permitted a 1.8 FAR bonus to the zoning lot. The existing building at 90 Sand Street has also been vacant since 2013. The applicant and HPD have recorded 2 regulatory agreements against Lot 9, requiring that the applicants rehabilitate the existing building for supportive and affordable housing. The surrounding area contains a mix of uses, including medium and high-density residential, commercial, and community facilities, as well as numerous open spaces. The site is also transit-oriented with access to the A, C, and F trains, as well as the B67 and B69 bus lines. The applicant is proposing to convert the existing 90 Sand Street building on Lot 9 to a community facility containing 508 units of supportive and affordable housing for low and moderate income tenants. The project would include 305 supportive housing units for the formerly homeless and 202 affordable housing units targeted to households earning 30 to 100% of the area median income. In response to questions raised by the commission at certification, the applicant team will speak in more detail on the breakdown of units at tomorrow's public hearing. The redevelopment would also renovate the building's lower floors to include a reception desk with security staff on site 24/7, and would include tenant amenities such as a laundry room, fitness room, and a computer lab. There will also be office space for the building management, as well as for the Center for Urban Community Services, who will provide on-site social services to residents of the building. And that would include case management, primary medical care, mental health services, employment readiness guidance, and benefits counseling. In addition, the applicant intends to lease a portion of the cellar level to a tenant that would provide space for a community facility, commercial, or light industrial use. However, a tenant has yet to be identified. The currently gated plaza along J Street will also be improved and open for public use after the applicants obtain a chairperson certification, which will be filed in the near future. The applicants are also prepared to share an overview of the planned plaza at tomorrow's public hearing. The architect will be on hand. The project area is currently within an existing M16 district. To facilitate the proposed development, the applicant proposes a zoning map amendment to rezone the project area from an M16 district to an M16 R10 district and to establish a special mixed-use district. The proposed mixed-use district would maintain the existing bulk regulations and would newly permit community facility and residential uses. This would allow the existing 90 Sand Street building to be converted to a community facility use. Second, the applicant proposes a zoning text amendment to Appendix F of the zoning resolution to create a new mandatory inclusionary housing area. The applicants are proposing to map both MIH option 1 and 2. On November 20th, 2019, Community Board 2 held a public hearing, and on December 11th, they voted to approve the project, 39 in favor, 0 opposed, and 0 abstaining. The Brooklyn Borough President held a public hearing on December 10th. However, we have not received the recommendation yet. Thank you.
Questions? Commissioner Levin.
With the split of units divided between supportive housing and low and moderate income households, are those going to be intermixed throughout the building, or are they be one isolated in different portions of the building?
I believe they're going to be intermixed, but I can follow up with the applicants to make sure they address that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Other questions? Then we'll see this tomorrow at our public hearing.
The 8th item on the agenda, page 148, is a pre-hearing review of a UDAP and disposition of city-owned property in Brooklyn Community District 3. Our presenter is Karina Lian.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is an application coming back from referral by the New York City Department of Housing, Preservation, and Development for a UDAP designation, project approval, and disposition for 13 vacant city-owned lots to facilitate the construction of 7 residential buildings with approximately 78 units of affordable homeownership housing. The proposed developments are in the southern part of the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood in Community District 3 in Brooklyn. I'll remind you the sites are all located between Fulton Street, which is a local commercial corridor, and Atlantic Avenue, which is a main thoroughfare with uses ranging from residential to light industrial. Significant institutions in this area include Interfaith Medical Center near Cluster 1 and Boys and Girls High School, which is in between Cluster 1 and Cluster 2. This area is well served by transit, and each site is within 2 blocks of the subway and 2 bus routes. We'll now take a closer look at each of the clusters. So this first cluster is the westernmost one and includes development sites 1 and 2 located on Herkimer Street. These sites are in R6A district, which is a contextual district that allows 3 FAR for residential use and allows buildings with street walls up to 60 feet high and a maximum building height of 70 feet. Sites 1 and 2 both front on Herkimer, which is residential, and it has 2 to 4 story row houses and apartment buildings up to 6 stories. So here you see the development sites as viewed from Herkimer Street. Each site is an assemblage of 2 interior lots with 40 feet of frontage and an area of 4,000 square feet. So these developments proposed for these sites will be the same design and will be built pursuant to the current zoning, which is R6A. Each building will contain 10 units and approximately 11,400 square feet and will be 5 stories at 52 feet tall. This cluster, the second cluster, is about 1/2 mile east of the last one and has similar land uses and zoning. The 3 sites that are in this cluster are within an R6B zoning district, which is a slightly lower mid-density contextual zoning district than the R6A zoning district of sites 1 and 2. So R6B allows 2 FAR for residential use in buildings with a street wall up to 40 feet tall and a maximum height of 50 feet. Most of the surrounding buildings in this area are 2 to 4 story row houses and apartment buildings up to 7 stories. So site 3 is the first site in this area, which is on the east side of Rochester Avenue, just south of Herkimer. It's composed of 2 tax lots with 42 feet of frontage and approximately 4,100 square feet in area. The proposed development will contain 8 units in a 7,500 square foot building, or 4-story building that's 40 feet tall. So site 4 is located on the same tax block, but fronts on Side and Place, 1 street over. This is an assemblage of 3 tax lots with 63 feet of frontage and a total area of about 6,100 square feet. The development on site 4 will have 15 units in approximately 11,700 square feet in a 4-story, 40-foot tall building. Zoning requires 8 parking spaces for a development of this size, but a zoning override was obtained to waive this requirement, so the building does not include any off-street parking. The next site, number 5, is across the street and is a 6,000 square foot irregularly shaped corner lot with 52 feet of frontage on Herkimer and 105 feet of frontage along Side and Place. The development for this building will also be a 40-foot tall, 4-story building. This will have 12 units and approximately 10,700 square feet. A zoning requirement was also obtained for this development to waive the 6 parking spaces that would be required. The last project cluster is about a 1/4 mile east of cluster 2 and has generally similar zoning and land uses, though there is an MX10 special district with underlying M11 and R7D districts and a coterminous inclusionary housing designated area mapped along Atlantic. So the 2 sites here, 6 and 7, one of them is in an R6B district, which the same bulk regulations as the last sites we looked at, and then site 7 is located in that MX10 special district, and so it's subject to the base bulk regulations of R7D districts, which is 4.2 residential FAR, and allows for 10-story buildings with an 85-foot base height and 100-foot maximum building height. So sites 6 and 7 are both interior lots that front on Ralph Avenue, just south of Herkimer Street. This area has more varied building forms than the last clusters, with 2 to 3-story row houses and 1-story retail with parking lots, as well as some 1-story industrial buildings. Site 6 is made up of 2 lots with 50 feet of frontage and approximately 4,500 square feet of lot area. The development proposed for this site is subject to R6B zoning regulations. It will be a 5-story, 8,600 square foot building with a 40-foot base height and a total building height of 49 feet 6 inches tall. And it'll have 10 units. So the last site is on the same block and has 34 feet of frontage and an area of approximately 3,000 square feet. The development here will be built pursuant to the basic non-inclusionary housing regulations for R7D zoning. This development will contain 13 units and have approximately 12,200 square feet in a 7-story building with a base height of 62 feet and a total height of 72 feet. I'll note that the top story is set back 22 feet from the street wall, which is why you can't see the top floor in the rendering. So just to summarize, this application is for UDAP designation, project approval, and disposition of 13 lots. And in total, there will be 7 developments with 78 dwelling units. They'll all be affordable with homeownership housing. This application was certified on October 15th of 2019. Community Board 3 held their hearing and voted to approve the application on December 2nd with 37 in favor, 1 against, and 0 abstaining. The Brooklyn Borough President's Office held their hearing on December 10th and recommended approving the application with conditions in HPD's land use agreement. So they recommended memorializing some sort of mechanism for permanent affordability, memorializing having more family-sized units and more units at lower income tiers, as well as the utilization of a local nonprofit group as a marketing partner, and then the incorporation of building and site-based sustainability strategies. The public hearing for this will be January 22nd, and the deadline to vote is March 9th. I'll now take any questions you have.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Thank you. So has the developer been designated as of yet?
Yes, HPD has a development team.
Yeah, because I'd be interested at the public hearing to know what measures are going to be taken at these various sites, because with the exception of Site 7, which is a larger building than the other sites, which are infill development for the most part, what kinds of mitigating measures are they going to take so that the construction would have as little impact on the surrounding areas? I'm talking about hours of construction and that kind of thing.
Okay, I will definitely.
Because those are very dense communities, and construction will resonate more than it would in downtown Brooklyn, let us say.
I'll ask the applicant to speak to that.
Other questions or comments? Commissioner Levin.
I'd also like it if HPD could remind us about the affordability commitments that are part of the homeownership program, and responding to the borough president's request that there be some mechanism for, let's just guess, longer affordability than HPD normally applies.
I will ask them to speak to that.
Others? Commissioner Marin.
These are all homeownership, so they're all under the open door term sheet, correct?
Correct.
Other questions? Then we'll see this tomorrow at the public hearing.
Item 9, page 208, is a post-referral review of zoning authorizations in Manhattan Community District 1, and our presenter is Allison Brown.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. GFP Real Estate LLC seeks authorizations to permit a horizontal enlargement of an existing arcade and 3-block arcade, and to modify certain public space requirements at 100 Pearl Street, formerly 7 Hanover Square, in Lower Manhattan Community District 1. This application was first presented to the Commission on December 2nd, 2019, and was then referred to Community Board 1. Today, I will share a modified design put forth by the applicant based off the Commission and community feedback. So as a reminder, the project site is outlined in red, is located within the Water Street subdistrict of Lower Manhattan here. The Water Street subdistrict provides a mechanism to allow enlargements within the existing arcades. These horizontal enlargements are not included in this floor area. The infill arcade are meant to provide improved street frontages activated by retail and lobby uses. In addition, developers must provide a compensating amenity, typically an improvement of an existing public space. 100 Pearl Street, formerly 7 Hanover Square, which is identified as Site 12, can achieve an enlargement through a combination of a chairperson certification for areas shown in gray on this diagram and a CPC authorization for areas shown in the hatch pattern. In this instance, the compensating amenity will be the creation of an indoor public space. Here we see the existing building's ground floor plan, which includes a through-block arcade connecting Pearl Street and Water Street, as well as a L-shaped arcade running along Water Street and Hanover Square. The indoor portion of the building contains primarily office lobby use and residential use, and retail uses. The proposed approximately 7,000 square foot horizontal enlargement is located within the building's existing arcade, through-block arcade, and certain ground floor spaces that did not generate a floor area bonus. The through-block arcade would remain, but would be reconfigured as an indoor public space, which is shown in yellow on this diagram. The indoor public space would be approximately 6,300 square feet in size and continue to comply with the height, width, and other features required of a through-block arcade and continue to provide a public passageway between Water Street and Pearl Street. The proposed design reinstates a continuous street frontage around the block. Retail would be provided to activate the streets and also the indoor public space. So here we see a closer look at the proposed indoor public space. The image on the left is what the commission saw previously, the last time this appeared at review session. Concerns were raised by the commission of the overly private feel of the proposed public space. The applicant is proposing a series of modifications, which can be seen on the right, in response to the commission's concerns. The applicant feels that the design intervention shown here would contribute to the feeling that this space is for the public. So specifically, as we can see on the drawing on the left, and as pointed out by the commission previously, there are certain amenities that are acting as obstructions to a clear pathway. The applicant has straightened and widened the circulation path, which connects Water Street and Pearl Street. This has been done by moving around certain public amenities, such as tables and chairs and planting. However, there's no reduction of public amenities being offered. Further, the applicant also proposes to modify the application with the removal of 2 of the 3 kiosks previously proposed. This removes the previously requested waiver for additional kiosks. Overall, the applicant feels that these changes create a more truly public space and make the through-block connection more intuitive and welcoming. So in rendering, here we see the indoor public space from the perspective of the Water Street entrance. This is the same rendering you saw at the last presentation. And here with annotation, we can see that the proposed modification to the public space would relocate seating and tables and plantings elsewhere, which would result in allow for a widened circulation path. The applicant also states that certain proposed design elements, such as the decorative canopy shown here, will assist the pedestrian wayfinding through the space. Here we see the continuation of the canopy outside in the form of an awning, again signaling the public nature of the space, as well as the highly transparent frontage and the public space signage, which will indicate that the space is public and the hours of operation. The applicant is seeking from the commission 2 authorizations. An authorization is needed to permit the horizontal enlargement within area B of the diagram I showed previously. And secondly, the applicant also seeks an authorization to modify design provisions of indoor public space in relation to grade changes and signage requirements. An authorization is requested to accommodate the slight existing grade change in the indoor public space between the 2 streets. The indoor public space will gently slope between the 2 and will be ADA compliant. An authorization is requested to allow 1 2.25 square foot non-illuminated double-sided accessory blade sign for each retail establishment with frontage on the indoor public space with a maximum of 16 retail establishments, and 2 non-illuminated signs of 7 square feet for the single proposed kiosk. In addition, the applicant is seeking 2 chairperson certifications to permit the horizontal enlargement of the existing arcade as described in Area A on the diagram, and to permit cafes in the indoor public space. The application was referred to Community Board 1 on December 2nd of 2019. The Community Board issued a resolution on December 19th for a vote of approval with conditions, as stated here. The first condition was that the 2 additional kiosks requested as part of the authorization not be pursued. Secondly, the Community Board requests a commitment from building ownership that construction be performed only during working hours and there's no weekend work. In addition, the applicant must reach out to the Community Board and neighbors with advance notice of any street or sidewalk closures. And finally, that the hours of operation of the indoor public space be extended to 24 hours. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Questions from the commission? Okay, we'll see this tomorrow at the public hearing.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is not a public hearing.
Yeah.
This is one that we schedule for a vote.
Yep,
Sorry,
schedule for a
different
vote.
action. Sure. I was on autopilot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item 10, page 293, is a pre-hearing review of a disposition of city-owned property in Manhattan Community District 7. Our presenter is Andrew Cantu.
Good afternoon. This is an application by the Department of Housing Preservation and Development for the disposition of city-owned real property located at 266 West 96th Street, returning after referral to the Community Board and the Borough President on October 28th, 2019. The property is a 5,000 square foot lot on the south side of West 96th Street between Broadway and West End Avenue on the Upper West Side, Manhattan Community District 7. The project sponsor and HPD are working to assemble a disposition site with 2 privately owned properties to the west, outlined in yellow, to construct a 23-story, 125,000 square foot building containing residential and community facility uses. Public financing is anticipated to be through HPD's Mixed Middle Income Program. The surrounding area is characterized by mixed-use developments along Broadway, a mix of low and mid-rise residential buildings along West End Avenue in the mid-blocks, with several institutional uses scattered throughout the neighborhood. The Riverside West End Historic District is directly adjacent to the project area to the south and west. The development site is located in an R10A contextual residential zoning district, which permits high-density residential uses subject to quality housing contextual regulations. For developments participating in the inclusionary housing program, a 12 FAR can be achieved with a maximum building height of 23 stories and 235 feet. Currently, the development site consists of a 4-story decommissioned MTA electrical substation on the disposition site, highlighted in yellow on your left, a 2-story building owned and occupied by the Salvation Army on the lot immediately to the west, and a 2-story building owned by the NAACP Roy Wilkins Center just west of that. The Salvation Army will occupy space in the new development, and the NAACP has opted not to return to the site after construction. The proposed development will consist of a 23-story mixed-use building containing approximately 171 mixed-income rental units with a mixture of micro units, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. Approximately 40% of the units, or 68 total units, will be permanently income restricted for households earning between 50 and 130% of area median income. The proposal includes approximately 8,000 square feet of ground floor community facility space, 6,500 of which is intended to be used by the Salvation Army. The project will include several amenities available to all residents, including a gym, 3,400 square feet of indoor amenity space, and an outdoor terrace. Tomorrow will also serve as the hearing for the draft environmental impact statement. The DEIS identified significant adverse impacts with respect to historic and cultural resources, particularly architectural resources, as the building on the disposition site is one of the 8 original substations that powered New York City's early subway system. To mitigate adverse impacts, the project sponsor has pledged to incorporate significant features of the substation design into the new building. This application was referred by CPC to Manhattan Community Board 7 on October 28th, who considered it at their December 17th meeting. The Community Board voted to approve the application with 2 conditions and 2 strong recommendations, with 36 in favor, none opposed, and 3 abstaining. The conditions would require the developer to reach out to local nonprofits to ensure that local residents, in particular seniors, are made aware of the availability of the affordable housing opportunity, their eligibility to apply and provide assistance when submitting applications. The developer is also obliged to form a construction coordination committee to include neighbors and members of CB7, convening at least once a month to ensure that construction proceeds with minimal disruption. Apart from these conditions, the Community Board also strongly recommends that the sponsor reserve at least 75% of the affordable units of each size for households earning less than 100% of area median income. This recommendation is in response to concerns that the project does not provide deep enough levels of affordability. In addition, the Department of Transportation requires a local sponsor to maintain certain traffic calming devices, and the Community Board has asked the developer to maintain a curb extension at 96th and West End Avenue in response to safety concerns. We just received the BP's recommendation, so I wasn't able to update this slide, but she recommends disapproval with modifications and conditions. One of her conditions being that a minimum of 65% of the units should be affordable. At least half of the affordable units should be affordable to households earning up to 60% AMI. And micro units should comprise no more than 15% of the total number of units in the project. And I have copies of that we can have here after the presentation.
Commissioner Delos.
I won't be here, but it would be helpful to know whether or not the development team has looked at, the micro units are a relatively new thing. And my experience has been that depending on the level of AMI that's targeted for the unit, that the turn down rate and the turnover rate is quite high. And so it would be helpful to know what level of research they did to determine the mix of the micro units and what targeting they're doing on the AMI. So that we don't squander a very valuable resource.
Commissioner Marin.
Echoing the sentiments of Commissioner Delos, I know that we had approved the development of a micro-unit building on 23rd Street, I think it was, and that may be an anomaly because that was for artists and residents, I think it was. So that may be an anomaly, but it'd be interesting to note what the stats are in terms of turnover and turn down rate in that one specific building, because that would give us some sort of a sense. And then again, I happen to agree, the turnover rate is high, so finding out where else in the city we've done micro units and what the turnover and turn down rates are would be very interesting.
Other comments? Commissioner Levin.
Yeah, just to pile on the micro units, we jumped through all sorts of hoops to allow that 22nd Street project to happen on a test basis. How is it that we're not jumping through similar hoops here for units that are as small as 290 square feet? I think some of the press information has focused on the possibility that seniors from the neighborhood would move into this space. Having wrangled with a couple of seniors in my own family about the importance of downsizing, to say nothing of listening to NYCHA wrangle with this downsizing argument as it relates to seniors, I'm very skeptical that if these are really intended for seniors, that's likely to occur. So I think we can anticipate a robust discussion. I hope the developer will come ready for a robust discussion about that tomorrow. And I hope also that they can address the borough president and the community board's concerns about levels of affordability. And also the borough president's request that a larger number of these units be affordable. I would note that this is a mixed site, some privately owned land next to the MTA site, so that the city-owned property is 48% of this site, which I think argues in favor of more permanently affordable units here. Normally, we like to see a very high proportion of affordable units come out of a city-owned site. So why can't we aim for more here?
My understanding is that...
My rhetorical question.
Okay.
It won't be rhetorical
Understood.
tomorrow, but for you, it's rhetorical.
Yeah, there were additional questions that were asked at referral, including details on the brownfield remediation program, again, high proportion of micro units. So I relayed all of those to the developer and the applicant team, and they'll address those tomorrow.
Other comments? Okay, we'll have a lively public hearing tomorrow.
Item 11, page 310.
Oh, I'm sorry. Brian, if we could hold off for a second?
I'm sorry, it just occurred to me. I know you said that the NAACP was choosing not to return to the site. It would just be helpful to know what services were being provided there and where they're going to go.
Okay.
Okay. Item 11, page 310, is a pre-hearing review of a zoning map and zoning text amendments in Manhattan Community Districts 2, 3, and 5. Our presenter is Matthew Pietris.
Good afternoon. Give this 1 second.
Oh, thanks.
There we go. So this is a department-led application for a zoning map and zoning text amendment to map an area south of Union Square, and in that area require new hotels to undergo a special permit. As you may recall, this is roughly the area which to the north we have 14th Street, to the east we have 3rd Avenue, to the south roughly 10th Street, and to the west is 5th Avenue. And so we see here, this is a land use map, that the mixes of uses here are pretty varied. We have mixed residential commercial in the peach, with also exclusively commercial in the red, and then a lot of public facilities, mainly educational uses in the blue. These are just a few photos that exemplify those mixed typologies in the area. Recently in the area, there was a construction of a hotel, the Moxie Hotel, which is on 11th Street. Many community members believe that this hotel was out of context in the area, and so this is the type of development that would then undergo the special permit if this were to be approved. For the actions, we have a zoning text amendment that would extend this existing special Union Square district, which is shown in blue, to the area south, which is in a peach or red in subdistrict B. Within subdistrict B, this is where the hotel special permit would apply. In subdistrict A, it would not apply. And then the existing regulations of the Union Square Special District would continue to apply in subdistrict A, and they would not apply in subdistrict B. The special permit would apply to new hotels, conversions, and enlargements. In public review, so this was referred to 3 different community boards. Community Board 2 and 3 recommended disapproval of the application with conditions. Community Board 5, because there's only 3 lots that are located within this special district, they deferred to Community Boards 2 and 3. And we're still pending the recommendation from the Borough Board. Some of the conditions listed in Community Board 2 and 3's recommendations related to existing zoning and development. Both requested a rezoning to a lower density district, either commercial or residential. Both believe that the area is overdeveloping with commercial uses. They also noted that they believe that high-rise development would replace low to mid-rise development. They stated that the area should be rezoned with inclusionary housing, but also with height limits between 80 and 120 feet. Community Board 3 specifically called out the 3rd and 4th Avenue corridors, which should be contextually downzoned, which would continue with the commercial designation, but at a lower density. With historic resources, both believe that the EAS should recognize more buildings as historic resources, including some within the projected development sites. I will note here that the department, in consultation with Landmarks Preservation Commission, did issue a revised EAS. There were some updates for clarity to the historic resources section for figures and tables. The conclusion that this would not result in significant adverse impacts remains. Community Board 2 and 3 both believe that the area should be designated a historic district and that more buildings generally should be landmarked. Community Board 3 also stated that the findings to obtain a hotel special permit should be more stringent. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions? Okay, we will see this tomorrow at the public hearing.
Thank you.
For future votes for tomorrow, Wednesday, January 22nd, staff have prepared reports for 503 Broadway, 46-74 Gansevoort, 2513 through 2523 Avenue O rezoning. Also scheduled for a decision on Wednesday are 18, 24, 28 Bedell Avenue, 29 and 31 Everton Avenue, 585 Lamont Avenue, 301 Sheldon Avenue, 70 Cedar Terrace, 74 Cedar Terrace, 536 Sinclair Avenue, Edinburgh, or 238 Edinburgh Road, and the Greenfield Residence 3 Alderbrook Road, and 5051 Iceland Avenue. No further questions. Moving on to Wednesday, February 5th, 2020, staff are preparing reports for 47 West 28th Street Building, 49 West 28th Street Building, 51 West 28th Street Building, 53 West 28th Street Building, 55 West 28th Street Building. All of these are the Tin Pan Alley landmarks. Yes.
I'm wondering if it's possible to get a consolidated development rights transfer analysis for those 5 buildings altogether?
Sure. We can take a look at that.
Yeah, that's a great idea
because it looks like they each individually have a significant amount of transferable development rights, and there are not a lot of receiving sites in the area, and what would happen, I mean, it's a reasonable scenario to think they might all get pushed together. So what's the...
Sure.
How might that work out?
We can take a look at that. My belief is that the 20% receiving cap would sort of probably be maxed out at each of the sites, and that'd be the end of it, but we can do that.
Seeing that on a consolidated basis would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And then also on February 5th, the Public School 31 landmark rescission. Okay. For post-hearing follow-ups, Lennox Terrace is here. Allison Brown is here to discuss.
Okay, good afternoon again. As a reminder, Lennox Terrace Development Associates is pursuing this application. It was certified on August 26th of 2019, and the public hearing was held on December 18th of 2019. And this is our second of 2 post-hearing follow-up sessions. The first held on January 6th, as you can see on the left-hand side, those are the topics that we covered 2 weeks ago. And today we'll be covering the topics on the right-hand side. And we've added a few items in regards to Commission's questions at the last review session. So the first item is the proposed zoning change. As mentioned at the previous review session, the applicant is proposing to modify the application to an R8 zoning district with a commercial overlay. The original proposal was to replace the existing R72 district with a C62 commercial district. The applicant has confirmed that in tandem with the proposed R8 district, a C15 commercial overlay district is being proposed. The overlay would be mapped to match the existing C14 that we can see on the right, but it will extend to the southwest corner of 132nd and Lenox by an additional 100 feet here. So instead of 100-foot width here, it'll be 200 feet. And then also along Fifth Avenue, it'll be extended to 125 feet in depth rather than the existing 100 feet in depth. This is to match the proposed new building footprints. The R8 residential zoning districts are mapped in 3 locations within a quarter mile of the project area, and the commercial overlay districts like the ones proposed here are mapped all along the avenues and major streets in the neighborhood. The proposed R8 residential district and C1 commercial overlay ensures that the project development would be in context with the surrounding neighborhood. And then just further breaking down what this means in regards to FAR and uses permitted on the site. This is a chart showing this in further detail. As you'll see, the proposed C15 is very similar to the existing C14 overlay, which the community board requested to remain. The proposed commercial FAR will be identical to what exists today, and the same use groups will apply with the addition of use group 5. Commercial uses in the C1 districts are intended to serve local shopping needs and permit a variety of retail stores with personal service establishments such as grocery stores, restaurants, hair salons, and drugstores. Retailers that serve the community today, such as laundromats, would be permitted to remain in the proposed zoning. Some uses, such as variety stores, dry goods, and furniture stores, are limited to 10,000 square feet of floor area per establishment in the proposed C15 commercial overlay. In C1 districts, commercial uses are typically limited to ground floor in any building or portion of a building occupied on one or more of its upper stories by residential uses or by community facility uses. No commercial uses in those instances shall be located above the level of the first story. Okay, are there any questions with the proposed zoning district change before I move on? Okay. Second was the proposed site plan change with a focus on changes along the Lenox Avenue frontage. So the original proposal is shown on the right. On the left, we see the changes that I presented 2 weeks ago, which removed the 6-story podium building, removed the sky bridges connecting the northern and southern tower to that 6-story building, and most importantly, retains the historic entrance to building 470. This was overall seen as a positive design change. However, the commission raised concerns in regards to the loss of a linear and intuitive east-west connection from West 134th Street through the site, which was previously retained here and was lost in this most recent iteration. In response to the commission's concerns and further comments from the department, the applicant team examined the implications of reintroducing through access at the extension of 134th Street. So here we see the proposal from the last review session, January 6th, and here we see a new proposal just presented for the first time today. So the reintroduction of through access at the extension of 134th Street was determined to be infeasible for a number of reasons. Extending through access at 134th Street and retaining the existing building 470 entrance would result in a orphaned standalone building located approximately here that was of a size that would seem to be inefficient to construct and operate. Alternatively, simply removing this entire wing of the building and shortening the building footprint to be limited to around here would result in a loss of the desired street frontage that was put forth in the original application. So on the diagram on the right, we see that the applicant is proposing further design enhancements to the Lenox Avenue frontage following the commission's feedback, including the introduction of 2 15-foot wide pathways tree-lined that will more directly connect to the pathways entering into the site that cross the site and then eventually exit onto Fifth Avenue. This is seen by the applicant as an improvement to the overall site plan, and DCP is supportive of this design change and believes that the expansion of the amenity spaces on Lenox Avenue next to the driveway entrance enhance the overall site design. However, DCP continues to work with the applicant team to ensure that a person-oriented design, one that focuses on pedestrian residential amenities, is achieved, as well as maintaining FD&Y access. So here we just see a closer look at that proposed redesign of the cul-de-sac and these pedestrian pathways connecting into the site. Okay, are there any questions on the further proposed changes?
On this one, I'll just note there are lots of competing public goods. This is a complicated pedestrian realm. Obviously, the initial proposal had the advantage of maintaining a very strong street wall along the avenue, but we heard loud and clear from the community about the importance of the historic entrance. We think this is an improvement because with the planted strips, it does encourage, it's more inviting to enter and make one's way across the site. However, we remain concerned that this drawing doesn't show it, but this is an homage to the car. This was built at a time when the important feature was to be able to drive up in your automobile. And then there's parking actually on both sides of it. So we are continuing, while we think this is a step in the positive direction, we are continuing to work with the applicant because we think there are other ways of making it less about the car and more about the pedestrian experience. Vice Chair Knuckles.
Allison.
Yes.
Right. Well, thank you for acknowledging my concern, and I'm sure others around the Lenox Avenue approach. I'd be interested to see what the elevation looks like for Lenox Avenue with this proposed.
Oh, sure. I actually can, well, it's not an elevation, but we have a rendering, which I don't know if this helps, but so this is, we're standing at the corner of 133rd Street and Lenox Avenue.
That's 470, right?
This is building 470. Right. This is the base of the southern tower, and this is the base of the northern tower and the northern tower here. So this opening is the combination of the cul-de-sac and the kind of proposed little pocket parks on either side with pathway. Not shown in this rendering are vehicles parked, and the proposed cul-de-sac does provide for parallel parking of vehicles. As the previously proposed also allowed for parking in this area.
And the height of this building on the corner of 135th and Basil Patterson Way, which is what it's called now. Lenox and Basil Patterson Way. What's the height of that?
This tower?
Yeah.
This is shown at 284 feet. Well, that is the permitted max envelope. I will confirm that that is the height of the tower being shown.
Thank you.
Commissioner Levin.
Yeah, this is certainly a step in a good direction. I'm wondering about the historic significance of the current configuration of the cul-de-sac. It has a kind of narrower looping way through the space. And the current proposal just looks like a large expanse of pavement. And I'm wondering what thought has been given to the historic aspects, the importance of retaining the current entrance configuration for 470.
So it'll be the same curb cut will be retained. It'll be the same entrance. So just to clarify, what you're noting is that this is just less pavement in the existing versus the proposed, like this is a more square shape.
And it takes a longer loop around, which I understand is compromised by adding the 2 pocket parks on either side. But, is this qualitatively, how is this qualitatively changing the experience of the approach to 470? Because I think I'm not defending I guess I'm sort of defending the current approach. But have we reached the best possible compromise in balancing these modern needs?
As we looked at it, what we heard was the importance of seeing 470 from the street, of having that, which runs up against wanting a stronger street wall along the avenue. And also, if one looks there today, it's a parking lot. And sort of the antithesis of a strong street wall is a parking lot. And so trying to balance all these pushes and pulls.
I would also just note, I think the primary difference between the two of these is the separation of the pathway that currently lines the driveway is being separated out as a pedestrian pathway separated from vehicles that more directly links to internal pathways versus a circuitous route to actually enter the site.
That part is good, but it kind of concentrates the auto use in that center portion.
Okay. We can come back to...
I realize it's all balancing stuff, so I'm just kind of curious about how you balance that one.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of different factors to balance.
Commissioner Deleuze.
For the parking now, is it parking for 470? Is that what's happening, and how many spaces? And is the conversation about, can this be moved elsewhere? Is that the conversation?
So I believe there's proposed to be 8 parking spaces. I'm not sure if there's space elsewhere on the site. As you know, the applicant is seeking a waiver to reduce the amount of required parking spaces. So I don't know if this is just, they need to go somewhere, and this is, hitting a limit, but I will come back with confirmation if there's a possibility to remove the parking spaces from the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, are these permanent or just temporary while you're unloading your car?
I believe they're proposed as parking spaces, not just drop off and...
Leave it there as long as you like, okay.
Oh, again, we'll come back with confirmation of their intended use.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Thank you. There are 2 curb cuts proposed for 470, right?
Previously, there was 2 shown here.
Yeah.
And now it's just proposed to be 1, which is the exact same curb cut that we see today. So that will not be modified.
So the current curb cuts would stay? Okay. Yeah, because on the first one, as I recall, you went to the northernmost curb cut and then in and out, which I couldn't understand, but I guess it's a moot point since you've eliminated it, so anyway. You need to pursue it.
Yeah, here's the originally filed again.
Thank you.
Good solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great.
A work in progress, and we'll bring this back at the next review session.
Yes, I'll confirm all the information requested for this. Okay, so for the third topic is the open space. Again, illustration of the enlarged site plan. The applicant acknowledges the community's and the commission's desire to maintain public access to the site. While the applicant continues to work through tenant concerns and liability issues in providing public access through the site, they believe moving forward with the proposed landscape design treatment keeps open the possibility of developing a workable public access solution at Lenox Terrace. The proposed connection through Lenox Terrace will serve the broader purpose of strengthening connections through the superblock and improving pathways for existing residents, Lincoln House residents, and those visiting Kennedy Community Center and Hansborough Recreation Center, which front onto 134th Street. The applicant states that they believe this pathway would most likely be utilized by locals who have the desire to cut through the site. Are there any questions on the...
I'll just note on this that the tenants, there's not unanimity among the tenants about providing or having this be mandated as open space. I'll also note that today, these are parking lots, and one can walk through the site except when there are gates to differentiate different parking areas associated with different buildings, but it's not gated at the boundaries of the site, at the borders of the site.
Thread your way through.
Yep.
Maybe you're not supposed to, maybe it's just not enforced, but thread your way.
Yep. Vice Chair Knuckles.
Well, not on this particular question, but as it relates to what is now the Metropolitan AME Church site, which is going to be
Right here.
sold, if it has not been sold.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any sense of what that building is going to look like and how it fits in the context of what's envisioned for the larger super block?
I mean, the proposed zoning would apply, the R8 with C1 overlay would apply to the site. It's been analyzed in the EIS, and there's visual renderings of what that site could possibly look like under the proposed in the EIS.
Do we, because the likelihood is that building will be completed long before this ever is.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to have some insight into, if we could, I mean, I guess it would be as of right.
Yeah, it would be as of right development, and the owner is the owner of the Lenox Terrace is not the same owner of the AME. So I'm not sure if they have publicly stated their plans for the site under the proposed zoning.
So we don't know when that demolition and new construction will ensue?
No, we do not. Okay. In regards to the building maintenance concerns cited by Lenox Terrace residents at the public hearing, in response, the commission received a letter from ownership detailing efforts to address maintenance requests and any new issues. They have also hired a new maintenance and property management team. Sorry, for this last item and the next few, I'll be referencing the letter that the commission received in part of their briefing packages. So in the next issue, in relation to affordable housing, at the public hearing, the applicant made reference to ongoing negotiations with HPD. And again, the commission received a letter from the applicant addressing this commitment. Olnick has been in negotiations with HPD about Article 11 preservation agreement for the existing buildings on the site. Article 11 is a tax incentive which encourages new construction or rehabilitation of affordable housing to be carried out by a housing development fund corporation. The benefit consists of complete or partial exemption from real estate taxes for up to 40 years. Of the existing to remain units, 80% of them are rent stabilized. However, there are no income restrictions on tenanting rent stabilized apartments. The preservation conversations are ongoing, and the application of Article 11 is not guaranteed as part of any approvals this commission may grant. Sorry, and these are the 6 buildings that have the existing to remain residential units. And also at the public hearing, the applicant testified that they are proposing that the northern tower, outlined in red, have 100% affordable units. To offer clarification, this is in addition to the 25 to 30% affordable units that is proposed for all new buildings as part of MIH. This proposed additional affordable housing is still in negotiating with HPD and will likely be confirmed after the CPC vote. In regards to retail, sorry?
Commissioner Deleuze.
On the possibility of an Article 11, so they're still in discussions with HPD. Do they have the income information necessary from the existing rent-stabilized tenants to determine whether or not they would be eligible?
I'm not sure if that information is available. However, my understanding is that the existing tenants would be grandfathered in, and only when apartments are turned over would this income restrictions apply. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And doesn't appear as though that conversation will be completed by the time that we vote?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So concerns were raised by the commission about the relocation of existing retail and the activation of vacant store frontages prior to construction beginning. In the applicant's letter to the commission, the applicant states that they will endeavor to occupy vacant retail with pop-up or seasonal tenants, and they also provide a retail tenant plan, which outlines an approach to existing leases as well as new retail spaces. And as far as the future retail goes, in the red outline is roughly the outline of the proposed C15 overlay. Again, this matches the existing C14 overlay, except for slight expansions along Lenox Avenue and Fifth Avenue in order to fully incorporate the newly proposed building footprints. Within the C1 district, commercial uses would be limited to those local retail uses seen today. Use is limited to the ground floor, and a variety stores, dry goods, and furniture stores are limited to 10,000 square feet per retail establishment. The largest possible ground floor commercial floor plate with the contemplated plan that we see today is in the northwest tower, and it's 19,000 square feet approximately. Overall, the applicant is proposing 130,000 square feet of retail, of commercial use. Yes.
11.
Yes, on the interim commercial uses, their letter mentions pop-up or seasonal tenants. But it just seems to me, especially with that 132nd and Fifth Avenue corner that has been vacant for so long. First off, I wonder if it's even occupiable. It's probably not in the greatest shape. But why don't they reach a little further than looking for commercial tenants? Aren't there some community organizations in the neighborhood? This can be a forlorn corner for a long time. I would urge the applicant to look at ways that they could make this space available to activities and organizations that will enhance the neighborhood, but may not be able to pay a market rent. But this would be an opportunity to activate a corner that is dormant, and perhaps give a leg up to some organizations that need help in the neighborhood.
Especially cultural ones.
Yeah, they haven't been drawing rents out of this corner for a decade.
Years.
Why don't they just keep it up and use this as an opportunity for some community development work here?
Okay, I will certainly relay that information to the applicant. Okay, finally, in regards to environmental mitigation, we touched upon transportation, construction, and historic and cultural resources previously. In regards to mitigation for open space and shadow impacts, in coordination with the Parks Department, the applicant has proposed a host of facility improvements at Howard Bennett Playground across the street from the development site, including ADA access improvements to the comfort station and improvements to playground equipment, drinking fountain, and spray shower. And also they are proposing improvements to the Hansborough Recreation Center, including new fitness and exercise equipment. The final EIS will be published on Thursday, January 23rd. Okay, and here we see that rendering again for reference. And are there any further questions?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to post-hearing follow-ups, Grand Avenue and Pacific Street. Amy Jin is here to present.
It's progress.
Good afternoon.
Should take
just going to wait
just
for
a
it to come
moment
up.
here. Yeah, I know you have a presentation. There we go.
Great. This is a post-hearing follow-up for the Grand and Pacific rezoning, which is a rezoning from N11 to R7D C24. At the public hearing, the Commission heard from the applicant and the Community Board. In particular, the Community Board voted to disapprove this application with conditions, and the Brooklyn office would like to reiterate the appropriateness of the density here. So just a reminder for everyone, this is the land use framework that DCP has developed in partnership with the Community Board. Grand and Pacific is highlighted in red and is within the Western Mid-Block mixed-use sub-area. The department believes that the R7D density is appropriate here, given that it's located on the short ends of the blocks, which can accommodate higher density. Additionally, R7D paired with the C24 overlay prohibits residential uses on the ground floor, which meets the community's objectives of activating the ground floor with non-residential uses. Here's a land use map, and we can see similar density in the area in the top right along Fulton Street. There is a patch of R7D there. The department also believes that R7D is appropriate for the site south of Pacific Street. I guess that one's best. South of Pacific Street, as Grand Avenue is a north-south corridor directly off of Atlantic Avenue, which is also a major corridor, and again would activate the ground floor with non-residential uses from the pairing with a C24 overlay. I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions? Thank you.
271 Seabreeze Avenue, I believe there was a letter in your package. 81 18 13th Avenue, is there any further questions on that? Okay. East 175th and East 180th Street Bridge rehabilitation. The C7 Baychester Avenue rezoning, the Borough office is actually working on a sort of comprehensive response, and they'll be back at the next review session. And the last but not least, Queens Boulevard MIH. Commissioner, you were recused, but you don't take off unless if there are questions. Okay. I don't have anything. All right, that concludes the review session for Tuesday, January 21st, 2020. The time is 3:02 p.m. I thought more people would be talking.